In a world where wealth could buy everything except health, one poor maid dared to hold a secret more powerful than gold. In the heart of London, beneath the towering mansions and polished lives, lived a humble woman named Maria. To her employers, she was just a cleaner, another quiet shadow sweeping through their halls. But hidden behind her gentle eyes was a wisdom older than science itself, a gift passed down from generations, who listened to the earth when no one else would. When Mrs. Santos Jameson, the elegant wife of a wealthy businessman, fell victim to an incurable infection, doctors gave up, hope faded, and despair moved into the mansion like an uninvited guest. But sometimes, miracles wear humble hands, and sometimes, the one the world overlooks becomes the only one who can save it. This is the story of faith beyond medicine, of courage that bloomed from compassion, and of a maid whose secret would challenge everything we thought we knew about healing. Before we continue, kindly hit the subscription button on your screen and tell us where you are watching from. Maria had been cleaning houses in London for nearly 7 years. Every morning before dawn, she tied her worn headscarf, buttoned her faded coat, and walked through the misty streets to the Jameson residence, a mansion that smelled of old money and quiet sorrow. Despite her humble life, Maria carried something far more precious than wealth: knowledge. Knowledge passed down from her grandmother, a village healer from a faraway place where the earth still whispered secrets through its roots and herbs. Inside the grand house, Mrs. Santos Jameson lay weak on her bed. Once a radiant woman, her face now looked pale and tired. Doctors had called it an incurable infection, something that no medicine could completely drive away. Her husband, Mr. Jameson, had spent thousands on specialists, herbalists, even trips abroad, but nothing worked. The infection kept returning, stealing her strength, little by little. Maria often watched silently as expensive pills were poured into silver bowls, as nurses came and went, and as Mr. Jameson stood helpless at his wife's bedside. There was something deeply sad in his eyes, the helplessness of a man who had everything but couldn't save the one person who mattered most. One evening, as Maria cleaned the bedroom, Mrs. Jameson stirred faintly. "Maria," she whispered weakly, "do you ever believe in miracles?" Maria paused. Her heart fluttered. "Yes, ma'am, but sometimes miracles come in simple ways." The woman smiled faintly before drifting back to sleep. That night, Maria couldn't rest. The image of her employer's fragile body haunted her. She remembered her grandmother's words, "The earth hides answers for those who listen." Maria knew she wasn't a doctor. She wasn't educated in the ways of hospitals and prescriptions. But she knew herbs, she knew the scent of life in the soil. The next morning, before dawn, Maria went to the local market. She moved quickly, buying a few rare herbs, roots, and dried leaves that most people overlooked. As she returned home, her hands trembled. She knew what she was about to do was risky. If it failed, she could lose her job, maybe even face trouble. But if it worked, she could save a life. That evening, when the house fell quiet, Maria approached Mrs. Jameson with a cup of warm herbal infusion. It was a simple blend, but one crafted with wisdom, a mixture known to cleanse, calm, and strengthen the body's natural defenses. "Please, ma'am," Maria said softly, "just a sip. It might help you rest." Mrs. Jameson's husband, weary and desperate, looked up. "What harm can it do?" he sighed. The cup touched the woman's lips. Days passed. Then, something strange began to happen. Mrs. Jameson's fever lessened. The infection's signs faded. Her voice grew stronger. Mr. Jameson stared at Maria, astonished. What did you give her?" Maria lowered her eyes. "Just what the earth gives freely, sir." But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Because not everyone would be happy about her discovery. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. If you were Maria, a poor maid with nothing but faith and courage, would you risk your job, your safety, and maybe even your freedom, just to help someone who barely noticed your existence? Or would you stay silent, and let fate take its course. Tell me what you would do in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how many of you would be brave enough to do what Maria did. The news spread quietly at first, then like wildfire. Within a week, Mrs. Jameson was walking again, her skin glowing with renewed life. Doctors were stunned. They had declared the infection incurable only a month before. Now she looked as though life itself had been poured back into her veins. Mr. Jameson called every specialist who had once treated her. They ran test after test, but the infection was gone completely. It was as if it had never existed. Behind the quiet success stood Maria, the maid who kept polishing the same silver tray over and over, avoiding attention. But people began to whisper. The nurse had mentioned seeing Maria mixing something that evening. A housekeeper told the driver. The driver told the gardener. And soon, curiosity turned into suspicion. One morning, a well-dressed man arrived at the house. He introduced himself as Dr. Miles, a medical researcher. "I've heard extraordinary things," he said, his eyes narrowing on Maria. "You may have stumbled upon something revolutionary. What did you use?" Maria hesitated. "Just herbs, sir. Things that grow in the soil. Things my grandmother taught me." Dr. Miles gave a thin smile. "Then perhaps you could share your secret? For science?" But Maria had seen that look before, the hunger of men who didn't seek healing, but power. She shook her head gently. "Some things are not meant to be sold, sir." That night, rain lashed against the windows. Maria sat by her small bed, thinking about the risk she had taken. She wasn't afraid for herself, but she knew what greed could do to good intentions. Hours later, Mr. Jameson knocked softly on her door. "Maria," he said, voice low, "you've saved my wife's life. I owe you everything. But they're not going to stop. Doctors, companies, they want what you know. They'll try to buy it, take it, or discredit you. Please be careful." Maria smiled sadly. "I didn't do it for money, sir. I did it because no one deserves to suffer when hope still exists." Weeks passed. Mrs. Jameson regained full strength and insisted Maria be promoted no longer a maid, but the household's companion and herbal consultant. Yet Maria refused fame, turning down interviews and offers. She continued her quiet life, helping those who came to her in need, never taking more than a thank you and a smile. Then one morning, a letter arrived from Dr. Miles. Inside was a small note that read, "The world doesn't reward secrets. Think wisely before it's taken from you." Maria folded the paper, placed it in a wooden box, and locked it away with her grandmother's recipes. She looked out at the garden, the same garden where she had found the herbs that saved a life, and whispered, "Let the earth keep her secrets. She knows who listens." And one more question before we end. Do you think Maria was right to hide her secret? Or should she have shared it with the world, no matter the cost? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what you believe. And though she remained just a humble woman, in the eyes of many, those who truly knew her whispered another name, the maid who healed the incurable. For Maria had proven one thing sometimes: miracles don't come from riches or laboratories, but from faith, compassion, and the quiet wisdom of a heart that simply wants to help. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere, someone needs a little reminder that kindness still heals and miracles still happen. Stay safe.